have a bunch of Easter goodies today. We're gonna do Easter prep, so Easter will be super easy and we can enjoy time with family and friends and go to church and not have to worry about being in the kitchen. We're gonna do this stuff ahead of time. We're gonna prep a ham. We're gonna make macaroni and cheese ahead of time, let them sit in the crock pot. So all we have to do is put them on early in the morning and they will be ready for lunchtime. We're gonna make carrot cake bread for breakfast, and we're gonna make homemade cheesecake and brownies for dessert, and I don't know, might have a couple of other things we might throw in there as well. But before we start, I'm gonna grab some sweet potatoes. It's because we're gonna have sweet potatoes also. Before we do anything else, let's grab some sweet potatoes, get them washed up, get them in the oven, and we'll get that going first. This is how I store my sweet potatoes. Get our sweet potatoes from Louisiana, and I keep them in the garage, and I do not wash them. As you can see, they're filthy, and helping preserve them. If I'm gonna heat up the oven, I wanna take full advantage and cook a full tray. So I'm cooking more than we will eat for Easter, but we eat sweet potatoes all the time, so we'll eat some beforehand. Some people call these yams. These are Evangeline sweet potatoes. They are the best sweet potatoes, in my opinion. Okay, as you can see, we got a cookie tray full. We just got inside with our sweet potatoes. First thing I did was clean the sinks. I'm gonna take this big trash off. As you can see, they're like really dirty. What we're gonna do is we're rinse them. I'm gonna grab a brush. We're gonna scrub them. Washed and scrubbed with a brush, and then rinsed again and dried. Put back on the same pan. I bake them for 20 to 30 minutes at 500 degrees, and then I turn the oven down to 350, and I'll continue to bake them for a couple of hours. While they're baking at 350, we're also gonna bake brownies, and we're also gonna bake some carrot cake bread for breakfast. I have a mess in the sink, so I'm gonna go ahead and clean this out again. And then I'm gonna run some fresh soapy water so I can wash dishes and clean as we go. Yay, I'm so happy you're here. Oh, I wanna say this about the potatoes. I washed them, rinsed them, dried them with a hand towel. I did not poke any holes. I do not put any oil or anything on them. Sometimes I will just line the bottom of the oven with oil and I won't even put them on a pan. But today I will put them on a pan because I will be utilizing the oven to bake other things at the same time. Preheated to 500 degrees, so we're gonna go ahead and put these sweet potatoes in. And for now, they're on the top, and then we're gonna move them from the top rack to the bottom rack after 20 minutes. Okay, my timer just went off. It's been 30 minutes, and I just wanna show you how puffed up they are. They're already oozing. Just creates a wonderful barrier. It helps the starches that's inside convert into natural sugars, makes them even sweeter. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn the temperature down from 500 to 350, move them to the bottom shelf, and we can put something else in the oven to cook with them. Next, I'm gonna prep a delicious mac and cheese in the crock pot. You wanna use 2 cups of pasta. I'm using organic gluten-free that I got on sale for 75 cents at the discount grocery store, but you use pasta of your choice. The first thing we're gonna do is boil the pasta for a couple of minutes on the cooktop. You don't want it all the way done. You don't even want it al dente. You just want it like halfway cooked, because if you put it in the crock pot with all these ingredients and it's not cooked at all, then it might be crunchy or not cooked enough. And if you cook it more than half the time, there's a possibility it may be mushy. I found I like the results the best when I boil the pasta for a few minutes. So we're gonna boil the pasta for probably about 3 minutes, and then we'll rinse it, add it to the pot with all of the other ingredients. Okay, while the pasta's boiling, I started shredding the cheese, and I just wanted to show y'all what I did and talk about this for a minute. I lost my home and everything in it. Hurricane a couple of years ago, so there's a lot of things, kitchen items that I used to have that I no longer have, or I'm just trying to make do without. Let's get the macaroni washed, and then I'll get back to this. Okay, the macaroni's been boiling for 3 minutes, so we're gonna turn it off. And I don't have a strainer, but I do have one of these little attachments. It'll fit any pot or bowl, which I really like. Got that on Amazon. So let me rinse this. We're gonna add some cold water. We'll let this drain, and then we'll add this to the crock pot. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and add the drained pasta. It's hot. It's cooked for 3 minutes, so it's just partially cooked. I'm gonna go ahead and let that cool. Back to what I was saying about the cheese. Okay, so I was blessed to have been given many things from family and friends that they no longer used, or they had in storage, or that they picked up at thrift stores or garage sales. And some of the items were items that I previously had and I absolutely love. Like one of them is this little Pampered Chef cheese grater. However, when you get this from Pampered Chef, there's more than one middle piece and it shreds cheese in different sizes. The one that's in here, or the only one that came with it whenever I got it, specifically used more for finer things. So it makes shredding cheese kind of challenging. Now, I also have a food processor that I recently picked up that I'm going to use after a while for something else. And I could use that for the cheese, but since this is only 1 8-ounce thing of cheese, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and chop this up instead of shredding it. All right, I just diced this up really small because it was easier. Okay, so we're gonna add the cheese last. I like sharp cheddar in macaroni and cheese. I just like the flavor that it gives. And this is how much I'm using, but I don't follow a recipe. You can't put too little or too much. It's whatever your preference is, whatever type of cheese you like. I'm just gonna tell you the basics of how I typically make this ahead of time in the crock pot. It's delicious. Even people that don't like these ingredients by themselves really like this. And people often ask me for the recipe, or people often ask me how I make this. And I don't follow a recipe. I just make it a little different every time. But some of the things that stay the same is regardless of the type of pasta I use, I only cook it for 2 or 3 minutes, rinse it, and then put it in the bottom of the crock pot. Next, I'm gonna add 1 cup. Now, as you can see, this is like overflowing. And the reason it's overflowing is because I'm not exact with my measurements. You can see there's a lot of air pockets right here and right here. So if I were to scrunch this all down, I'm just assuming it'd be close enough to a cup. But it is basically a 1/2 cup of sour cream and a 1/2 cup of mayonnaise. And so we're gonna add that. We are gonna add cream of chicken. And I know this sounds strange to put cream of chicken, sour cream, and mayonnaise in macaroni and cheese. Like most people will put Velveeta and evaporated milk. If I was making it on top of the stove or in the baking it, then yes, I would put those other things possibly. But I find that these ingredients hold up the best in the crock pot, and we want crock pot because we want it as easy as possible. Like Easter Day, I want to be enjoying time with my family. I do not want to be cooking. That's the last thing I want to be doing, although I love to cook. All right, I grabbed a spoon. It's just a giant stainless steel slotted spoon. And before we do anything else, I'm just gonna mix this up. You can double or triple this recipe. Okay, so that's the base. Now we're gonna go ahead and add some seasonings. Now I always add a little bit of mustard. You can use dry mustard. I'm using the spicy brown mustard because that's what I had out from the ham. And you just put a squirt of mustard. I'm gonna add 1 teaspoon of garlic powder, 1 teaspoon of onion. You wanna use onion powder or dried onion flakes. I didn't have onion powder, I just had dried onion flakes. So what I did was I put them in a little Ziploc bag and I crunched them up. And then seasonings of your choice. I personally do not add any salt because the cheese has a lot of salt, but I'm gonna add about 1/4 of a teaspoon of cayenne pepper. My family likes spicy food. About 1/4 of a teaspoon of black pepper. Now, some people like to put white pepper. They don't want the color to show. I'm putting red in there anyway, and I don't mind. I'm gonna go ahead and give that a little stir. I don't know if you can tell, but you can tell the consistency of this, like how creamy it is already without even any cheese. Now we're gonna add the sharp cheddar cheese that I cut up in chunks. This is the full 8 ounces. And then we're gonna go ahead and add the shredded, this is aged white sharp cheddar. I'm gonna go ahead and give it another stir. Now this is gonna sit in the refrigerator overnight. If this was sitting in the refrigerator for 2 or 3 days, you possibly can get away with not cooking the pasta at all. But if it's only gonna sit in the refrigerator overnight, you wanna cook the pasta halfway, or at least about 2 to 4 minutes, depending on the size pasta. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and get this covered up and put in the refrigerator. And then on Easter morning, I'm gonna pull it out and I'm gonna put it on low for 2 to 4 hours. You could cook it on high for 2 hours or low 4 to 6 hours, depending on how long you're going to be going to church. And when you get home, it will be nice and hot and perfect and ready alongside the ham. Here's the spiral honey ham that I picked up at Aldi in January for 50% off. It was $22.63 and I paid approximately $11.30. I want to say I picked it up probably the second or third week in January after Christmas. I just stuck it in the freezer, so I took it out this morning, so it is thawed. I am going to take it out of the wrapper and I'm going to throw this glaze away and I'm going to make my own glaze. I'm using 1 cup of brown sugar, and then I'm going to add a teaspoon of garlic, a teaspoon of cayenne pepper, a half a teaspoon of black pepper, a squirt of spicy brown mustard, just a dash of apple cider vinegar, and also a dash of balsamic vinegar. I'm using raspberry because I think the raspberry might complement the ham. Just like that. I'm gonna mix this up really well, and then I am gonna coat the ham and I'm gonna put it in the crock pot. I'm gonna let it just sit in the refrigerator until Easter morning when I'm ready to put the crock pot on. This is what the glaze looks like when I barely started mixing it. And you just continue to mix it all up and it's gonna become more like a paste and easier to rub on the ham. Okay, this is what it looks like now that it's been all mixed up. As you can see, it's extremely thick. You can just pat this on the ham as is, or you can add a little bit of extra mustard on the ham before you add this, and I think that's what I'm gonna do. I think I'm gonna put a little bit of mustard in my hands and coat this. Now I am gonna take this out of the wrapper and I'm gonna discard this. I'm gonna put it in here and I will not add anything. No liquid, no Pam, no oil, nothing, because 2 reasons. There's enough fat on this ham to give it enough moisture where it won't stick. The second thing is there's enough moisture in this ham to keep it moist while it's cooking. And if you add more moisture, all you're gonna have to do is condense it, and it's gonna create an extra step at the end of the process. This way it'll be perfect. You'll thank me later. All right, I just unwrapped the ham. I'm gonna put a little bit of this spicy mustard, just like that. As you can see, there's a lot of fat on here, which is gonna be great to provide enough moisture from it sticking. We're gonna rub it just like this. Okay, this is the other side, so we're gonna put a little bit more mustard. I really like these gloves when I'm dealing with meat. It saves me from having to wash my hands 5 times. Those gloves are really cheap. I just throw away each pair and get another pair. Okay, now I'm gonna put this mixture around all of it. I wanted you to see how thick it is and what I'm doing. I just use my hands and then you just rub it in. Okay, the ham is a little bit more delicate on this side because it's sliced, spiral sliced all the way. This side is not sliced all the way through on the fat side. So I'm gonna go ahead and put it in the fat side down on the bottom of the crock pot, and then I'll add the rest of the glaze. As you can see, I used all the glaze, put the rest on the top. I'm gonna go ahead and wipe the edge of the pot because I made a mess. As you can see, there's nothing else in the pot. It's stuffed. I'm gonna put the lid on, and it does close well. If the ham was raised above and I would not be able to put the lid on, then I would have had to cut some of the ham off. If your ham is really large, you may have to do that. This one fits perfectly, so it's ready for me to set it in the fridge. Now we're gonna make cheesecake in the Instapot. You can make this 1 to 3 days ahead of time. I'm gonna use 4 mini spring foam pans. I've never made the recipe in 4 mini pans before. I've only made it in a big pan, so we're gonna see how this works. Hopefully it'll work out well, but I don't have a big spring foam pan to make it in the oven. That's why I'm gonna use these mini ones, and I'm gonna make it in the Instapot. I picked these up at Marshall's for $1.25 a piece on clearance after Christmas. I picked up these parchment paper squares a long time ago at the Dollar Tree because I thought it would be really convenient if you ever needed some small ones that size. It worked out perfectly for today. I took the bottom and I drew a circle, and then I took some scissors and I cut them out. So you see I did those 3. We'll do this one together like that. And then I'm gonna take some olive oil and I'm just gonna coat the sides of the pans with olive oil. They will be ready to go. That's all we have to do for bread. Now we're gonna start working on the crust. Okay, the things that I had to purchase for this cheesecake was a box of graham cracker crumbs. I got at Aldi for a couple of dollars, and 3 blocks of cream cheese. These were $1.56 a pack, and I got 3, so basically $4.50, $6.50. The other stuff I already had. All right, we're gonna start by putting the graham crackers into the food processor. This is a Ninja food processor. I got it for Christmas. I think I've only used it one time. Let's hope I remember how to use it. It's filled to the top. This is 2 packs of graham crackers. If I didn't have this, I would just crush them in a Ziploc bag. That's fine if you do it that way. Oh, before I put the lid on, I'm gonna go ahead and add 4 tablespoons of brown sugar, half a teaspoon of salt, and I'm gonna add 1/8 of a teaspoon of cinnamon. And that's it for the crust, besides a stick of melted butter. Put the lid on. There we go. Okay, it's blinking. That means I'm not doing something right. Let's see how to work this thing. All right, I just had the lid on wrong. It was as simple as that. Put the lid on the right way. Now it's all lit up. It's not blinking anymore. So let's do this. All right, as you can see there, it's pretty crumbly. Okay, let's go ahead and add the butter. Looks like. Oh, it smells so good already. All right, we're gonna go ahead and put this in our little mini tins. And you can do 2 things. You could either put them in the freezer for 10 to 20 minutes as you make the filling, or you can bake them. I'm gonna go ahead and bake them in the oven. Go ahead and pour this. Let me try to do it this way. Let me scoop them. It looks really dry, but it's not. It's very crumbly. That's how you want it. You don't want it too moist. There's enough butter in there that these graham crackers will hold together. I like to add the little dash of cinnamon. It's just a little something extra. Sometimes I'll even add a little bit of cayenne pepper. I do it different every time. My family wouldn't be able to tell you how I make this. But that's the great thing. There's like no right way. You can't mess it up. You just do whatever you have, whatever you like, whatever sounds good for that day. Now that that's done, I'm gonna use the bottom of a drawer to just pack it down. Okay, as you can see, I just used the drawer just to pat them down as much as possible. They don't have to be perfect. And I'm gonna transfer these to a pan, and I'm gonna get them in the oven, 350 for 10 minutes. I'll set a timer. By the time I make the filling, they should be ready. All right, we're gonna start our cheesecake filling with 3 blocks of cream cheese, and they are softened. There we go. I took everything out earlier today, and I'll just let it sit on the counter at room temperature. The first thing we're gonna add is 1 cup of sugar. And before I do anything else, I'm gonna turn the beater on, and I'm gonna try to beat these things together a little bit. Or now that I've beat the sugar and the cream cheese together, let's add the sour cream. And I'm gonna add a cup of sour cream, and as you can tell, this is like sticking over the top because there's air pockets in it as well. And then also, this is a liquid measuring cup, not a dry measuring cup. We're gonna make do with what we got. It's close enough. You can put as little or as much as you want. All right, well, let's mix that in. Next, I added 2 tablespoons of homemade vanilla. This was gifted to me at Christmas by a sweet friend, and I'm just gonna put a little bit more. I already did 2, and I also did a teaspoon of salt. I decided I wanted really lots of vanilla flavor. We're gonna put the mixer aside. We're just gonna fold in the eggs. Well, I have 3 well-beaten eggs, and I'm just gonna do a little bit at a time. Okay, I'm gonna add the rest of the egg mixture. You want the eggs well mixed, but you wanna add the least amount of air into the mixture at this point. So I pulled these out of the oven a few minutes ago. They've been cooling. I'm trying to do this with one hand so I can film with the other hand. I'm using a scoop. This is just a gumbo ladle. You can see how really thick this is. We are gonna fill them to the top, just getting some in each one. Well, like I said, this is the first time that I'm adapting my normal cheesecake to these mini pans, and we'll make it in the Instapot. We'll see how it comes out. I'm gonna smooth them out. This is an 8-quart Instapot. It's new and it's different than the kind I used to have. I have used it one time, and then this would be the second time. I'm gonna add a little over a cup of water. And then I also added just a plain white kitchen rag at the bottom. Next, I'm gonna add the cheesecakes. Now, I did not think I was gonna do this, but I am gonna go ahead and add one piece of parchment paper. This is what it looks like, and I'm gonna put the lid on. Okay, we're gonna hit pressure cook, 16 minutes, 4 minutes for each cheesecake. Take it off and keep warm and hit start. And it's on, and we have the valve shut. It'll cook for 16 minutes, and then it'll sit and rest in there another 18 minutes while the pressure's coming down. All right, I'm gonna get these dishes washed up, and then we'll move on. Okay, the cheesecake is done, so let's open it up and see what it looks like. Wow. Okay, I overfilled them, that's for sure. It's not so bad. You can see I overfilled them, and because they weren't level, they kind of went over on the side. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make a topping for them anyway, so you won't see the top. So I think I'm just gonna shave the top off with a knife. Let's see if this works. It's like souffle because they're so hot. Okay, they're still gonna be delicious. Cannot mess up cheesecake. Doesn't matter what things look like, it just matters what it tastes like. Okay, so I'm gonna let these cool off for a little bit, just right here at room temperature. And then I'm gonna make a topping for them. And I'm gonna get this cleaned up in a little bowl because I don't want this to go to waste either. The thing about cheesecake, it has a texture similar to a souffle. And if you eat it before it sets, you'll taste the egg in it more. It'll taste more eggy. But the longer it sets, the better it'll be. So if you keep it in the refrigerator for a day or 2 or 3 and pull it out on Easter, they'll be perfect. And so here's one of these gloves that I love to handle food with. And I just did this straight on my counter because I know my counter's clean. I'm like cleaning it in between each thing. This is gonna go aside and give that to my husband for dessert with some fresh fruit. And he'll probably have some of that maybe tonight or tomorrow, I'm not sure. But anyway, I'll put that aside. Now let's make some icing. The classic New York cheesecake topping is sour cream mixed with sugar. You can do different ratios. I have a half a cup of sour cream and a half a cup of sugar. Beat that together. If you want it thinner, you can add a little bit of milk. Sometimes I add vanilla or some other kind of flavoring to it. This time I don't want to because I want it to be white. I'm gonna add these springtime sprinkles that I got on clearance for like 20 cents at the end of last year, and I haven't even used them, so perfect timing. Okay, so let me show you the consistency. And we're gonna cover up the top so it doesn't even matter how ugly it was. It's gonna be delicious. Nobody's gonna know any different. It is different. I'm used to making one giant cheesecake, but no one will mind. Maybe someday I'll find a spring foam pan on clearance, a bigger one, or at a thrift store or at Goodwill. And it looks like a half a cup was the perfect amount because I'm going to use all of this and I'm not going to have any left over. Now I'm going to take some of these Easter sprinkles. And there we go. Homemade cheesecake. I will put them in the fridge for a couple of hours like this, and then I will cover them and they can stay in the fridge until you're ready to serve. A super simple kale salad that's gonna get better as it sits in the refrigerator. Paid $1.40 for this kale. Wash and rinse the kale, and then I'm gonna mix up the dressing. It's gonna be a combination of olive oil, apple cider vinegar, fermented honey garlic, pine nuts, Parmesan cheese, cranberries, and a little bit of salt, maybe a little bit of pepper. This is all stuff that I always have. It's a very refreshing, wonderful salad that's perfect for any day of the year, and we're gonna have it for Easter this year. It will complement our meal. I have a stainless steel pan on medium heat. There's no oil, nothing in the pan. I'm gonna toast the pine nuts. And if you don't like pine nuts, you can use almonds, pecans, walnuts, any kind of nuts, or you don't have to put any nuts at all. I find it adds a wonderful flavor and just a little something special. Pine nuts are extremely expensive, but if you store them in the freezer, they last a really long time. Now, 1.5 pound bag of organic pine nuts. I got this at Costco. So I buy the nuts in 1.5 pound or 2 pound, 3 pound bags at Sam's or Costco, whatever size they come in, and I store them in the freezer, and then I pull out however much I need at a time, or I fill up smaller containers that I keep out in the refrigerator, and they last a really long time. So I want to say I bought pine nuts when we first moved here. I'm doing this so they don't stick or burn because the heat is kind of high. Do this for just a couple minutes. They smell fantastic. You can hear them. This is the easy way. You can put it under the broiler for a couple of minutes. You can put them in the oven. You can do all kinds of different things. I'm not going to put the nuts in the salad until I serve the salad. I'm going to put the nuts in a little bowl like this, and I'm going to just stick it inside the big bowl. Okay, as you can see, the pine nuts are nice and brown. They are toasted. They just didn't look like it. Now I'm going to make the dressing. And in the dressing, I'm going to put a little bit of fermented honey with garlic, which is so good for you. A little bit of apple cider vinegar. Just a little bit of olive oil. Okay, this is what I'm gonna make as one of our desserts. Dolly's Fabulous Fudgy Brownies. I have not tried these. I have tried the cake mixes, and when I picked up the cake mixes, I picked up one of each of her items just to support her and give it a try, although most of the time I make that stuff from scratch. But this is a Goodwill find that I found this month for $2. It's brand new. It's never been used. It does not have a box, or it didn't have a box, so I don't know what the brand is, and I don't know how well it'll hold up. There was one little spot that was messed up. But I thought for $2, it would be great for stuff like this. I got the brownies on sale at the local grocery store for $1.25, and the rest of the stuff I had. Brownies calls for an egg, 3 spoons of milk, and melted butter. And then I think I'm gonna make a homemade icing with just a little bit of cream cheese, not all of this, just a little bit, and some chocolate cocoa. And then I'm gonna put some of these Easter sprinkles on them. So far, I poured the brownie mix in here, and this fell out of the box. I guess it's some kind of double fudge topping. I'm not sure if I'm gonna use that or not, but anyway, all that's in this bowl is the fudge brownie mix and the milk, 1 fresh farm egg. I'm gonna go ahead and beat the egg before I put it in here, and I'm gonna go ahead and put the melted butter, and then I'll mix this up a little bit and give it a chance to cool before I add the egg. I like to do this first. The batter is gonna help cool down the butter, so that way you don't have to worry about cooking the egg. Okay, I guess I won't beat it first. I'll just add the egg, fresh farm egg. I washed the pan, and then I just took a little bit of oil and oiled the bottom, and I also oiled the bottom of the separator. Okay, so let me finish mixing this up, and then we'll get it in the pan. Okay, it's in the pan. I'm not sure how much it's gonna rise. It's kind of thin, but I scraped out everything that I could possibly scrape out of this bowl. I'm gonna insert this, and I'm gonna put them in the oven for 30 minutes, and while they're in the oven, we're gonna go ahead and make an icing. I have 2 ounces of cream cheese, a teaspoon of butter, that chocolate that was in that pack that came with the brownies, a teaspoon of vanilla, and about 1/4 of a cup of brown sugar. Let's see, I might put just a dash of milk, thin it out just a little bit. I added just a splash of milk. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and work on getting this off of the beater so that way we can make use of all of it. Let me taste it real quick. Oh yeah, that's really good. We'll go ahead and add this to the top once the brownies come out of the oven. Just pulled the brownies out the oven. This is what they look like. Some are thick, some are really thin. Gonna put them cooling on the rack. The brownies have had a chance to cool for about 15 or 20 minutes. Now I'm gonna go ahead and put the icing on them. I'm gonna go ahead and get all the icing out and then I'll show you. Okay, at first it didn't look like there was very much icing, but there's just enough. It's perfect. I'm gonna go ahead and sprinkle these sprinkles. I do have some chocolate candy or even some Peeps that I might put on these. After they cool and harden, then I take them apart if I want to serve them on something else. And there we go. We have Easter brownies with the wonderful chocolate cream cheese icing. All right, now we're gonna make some carrot cake bread. I like to use 3 to 5 carrots. These are skinny, so I'm gonna go ahead and use all of these. I'm gonna cut these up, put them in the food processor. The carrots are cut, they're in the food processor. I think that's good. So now we have some chopped carrots. Okay, in this bowl I have 1.5 cups of organic whole wheat flour, a 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda, and a 1/2 teaspoon of baking powder. And to that I'm gonna add 1/4 teaspoon of salt, a sprinkle of pumpkin spice powder, a sprinkle of cinnamon, 1/4 cup of brown sugar, 1/4 cup of white sugar. We're gonna go ahead and mix these up. Okay, now I'm gonna add some of the wet ingredient. I'm gonna add 2 eggs that's been beaten, a 1/2 cup of melted butter, a 1/2 cup of buttermilk, and a splash of vanilla. Now that that's mixed up, we're gonna add the carrot. Now I'm gonna add a pinch of shredded coconut, a handful of raisins, and a 1/2 cup of walnuts. I'm gonna fold these in and then we're gonna put it in the pan and put it in the oven. All right, it's all mixed up in the loaf pan. Put it in the oven for 55 minutes, 350. And we're gonna go ahead and make an icing. For the carrot cake icing, I have a 1/2 block of cream cheese, a cup of powdered sugar, a splash of buttermilk, and a splash of vanilla. This is what it looks like. I'm gonna go ahead and set it aside. And once the carrot cake comes out of the oven and it cools, then we'll top it. Carrot bread is ready. Let it cool. This is what the cheesecake looks like after it's been in the refrigerator. I'm gonna go ahead and cover them and then I'm gonna put them back in the refrigerator. I just wanted you to see what they look like now. They've already started pulling apart from the sides or setting. This is the carrot cake bread that we're gonna have Easter morning with coffee. This is the icing. Just a couple of spoons of this icing left, and I'm gonna put that in a little container in the refrigerator. I know what I'm gonna do. I have that leftover cheesecake, and I'm gonna put this on top, and he can have that as a treat with fruit. This is that leftover cheesecake, and I'm just gonna scoop this icing. I'm gonna grab a handful of frozen berries, and he will get a little treat. This is what's left of the brownies. The way I'm gonna serve them is I just plated them, 5 on a plate. I took this edible grass and bunnies. The wafers are extremely light, so they'll stand. And I just put a few on top of the brownies. Now I'm gonna take the grass and I'm gonna put it around the brownies. And then I'm gonna fill in with maybe a few jelly beans or something. This is how I'm gonna serve them. All I did was shred the grass, blue, green, and pink. Put some of the little bunnies on top of the brownies so they can stand up, and took some chocolate covered almonds and put around. A cute way to serve something so simple and easy. Chocolate covered almonds for the eggs, edible grass. This is strawberry, green apple, and blue raspberry. Chocolate brownies with the homemade cream cheese and brown sugar chocolate frosting. I removed the foil from one cheesecake. Now we're gonna get the spring foam pan off, see how it turned out. Oh, it looks so cute. Okay, I'm gonna get a knife to get the bottom off, and then we're gonna go ahead and put it on the cake stand. The bottom came off really easily, just peeled off. Go ahead and unwrap these 3. And then I'm gonna use the rest of this edible grass to put around them. And I think I'm gonna put a couple of Peeps on top of each one. All right, here's the little cheesecakes on a cake stand with some peeps. The rest of that grass at the bottom. Inside, I just had some of these little junior mint eggs. I only had a few. The box had already been opened. But I just took the few that I had and I put them in the middle and I put them all around a couple of those little confetti grass rabbits. This is how I'm gonna serve this. The cheesecakes did really well. As you can see, they're far from perfect because they're homemade. That's what makes them so great. The icing wants to melt a little bit since they've been out of the refrigerator while I've been working with them. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cover this real lightly with cheesecloth and I'm gonna stick it back in the refrigerator and I'm gonna pull it out whenever I'm ready to serve or when I'm ready to set the table. These spring foam pans worked really well for $1.25 a piece from Marshall's. So this is it. I'm satisfied. It's simple and easy, cheap, delicious. That's all we can ask for. Here's the mini cheesecakes. And the brownies. And I'm gonna set these all out in different places throughout the space and it's just gonna tie everything together. Easter morning, very early, you're gonna pull this out of the refrigerator. This is what it looks like. And it smells delicious already. And you're gonna put this on low for 7 to 8 hours. Depending on what time you want to serve, that's what time you're going to put it on. I like to wake up at 4 or 5 in the morning and then put it on. And if I'm not getting up for the day, then I'll go back to bed. Just going to press on. I'm going to cook it on low for 8 hours. This starts cooking. You're not going to touch it again for 8 hours. I just pulled the macaroni and cheese out of the refrigerator. This is what it looks like. I'm going to go ahead and flip this cover. And I'm going to put it on low. I'm going to put this in here. You can cook it on high for 2 hours or low for 3 to 4 hours. I'm going to put it on low so that way when we get home from church, it will be nice and ready along with the ham. We're going to fix a cup of coffee. Take my coffee with nut pods, French creamer, some collagen peptides, and we're gonna have some of this carrot cake bread. I try to start cutting it. Let's see. I left it in this pan. I am not gonna reheat it. We are gonna eat it cold. If you wanted to reheat it in the oven or the microwave, that's fine. Well, this is a lot more challenging than I anticipated. One hand. Let's see how easy it comes out. Oops. Let's just pretend I'm not doing this one-handed. Came out one piece. I think I ripped it in half. It is really moist. It will come out easily. It's not gonna all break apart. It just looks like that because I did it with one hand. It's a little drier than pumpkin bread. A little drier. Well, it is a little bit. This one is a little on the drier side. It's still moist and delicious. It's just not as moist as zucchini bread or pumpkin bread. We are gonna have a delicious piece of carrot cake bread with some coffee for breakfast and Easter morning. Then we're gonna go to church. All right, since I cut the first piece and I broke it, I wanted to cut another piece to see if I pulled it too hard with one hand. So I used 2 hands and I went ahead and I cut a second slice. It's held together nicely. It is nice and moist. Perfect for Easter morning. Okay, before we plate it up, I want to open each thing and show you what it looks like. This is the macaroni and cheese. I have not opened it at all since I put it on. It looks delicious. Okay, so that's the macaroni and cheese. Let's take a look at this ham. I have not opened this at all since it's been on. And this is just like my pork roast. Look at how brown this got on the top. And I want to say, this is with no liquid added. Now, it is not dry at all. The juice has come all the way up to the top. Now, you could take it out if you wanted and serve it in something else. But I'm just showing you what it looks like, keeping it in the crock pot. How that looks yummy. Okay, now we're gonna plate it up. Okay, this is what it looks like all plated up. We have sweet potato with butter, cinnamon, and sugar, the macaroni and cheese, the ham, which is so juicy. I have to say, I'm gonna give it a little bite. It is so good. It's delicious, but there is spice to it because of the cayenne. So if you don't like spicy food, just leave it off. It is not sweet. You would think it would be sweet. There's a nice combination between the sweet and the spice, with the brown sugar, but you can leave out the cayenne or just put spices of your choice. But as you can see, it is like so moist. It is not dry at all. This wonderful macaroni. These rolls and the greens. There's so much liquid in here. This is gonna feed a lot of people. This is an easy, just cook in the crock pot, wonderful, delicious Easter meal. Hope y'all enjoy. Hope y'all have a wonderful, blessed Easter. I just want to show you after I served a plate. See how it does not stick to the bottom. It has not stuck, but it is brown. It's got a crunch crust on the sides, just like it would if you would bake it. This comfort food goodness.